Leave my granddaughter alone!
Juliana stood frozen in the doorway of her own home, Nicholas's voice cutting through the birthday party like a blade. Pack your things and get out. I want a divorce. Vanessa is moving in tonight. The guest gasped. The mistress smirked. And Juliana felt her world shatter into pieces, until an elderly man in an expensive suit stepped forward, his eyes filled with tears. Juliana? My God, you're alive. You're my granddaughter. The color drained from Nicholas's face as he realized exactly what he'd just thrown away. Welcome back, my wonderful family and friends. I am Mr. ZAHA. Thanks for tuning in today. A kind words from a man who has seen it all. Marriage are not mostly bed of roses, sometime you need more of. More of what? Can't say. Continue watching, and you will surely know what to do in situations like this. Kindly hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll be bringing you another exciting story you definitely don't want to miss. So let's get started. The house blazed with light and laughter. Juliana moved through the crowd like a ghost, carrying a tray of champagne flutes to guests who barely acknowledged her presence. Her hands trembled slightly, not from the weight of the tray, but from the knot of dread that had been tightening in her stomach all evening. Nicholas's 35th birthday party was in full swing. Their home, the penthouse they'd bought 3 years ago when his tech startup finally took off, overflowed with tech executives, investors, and socialites. Everyone who mattered in San Francisco's startup scene had shown up. Everyone except the person Nicholas used to be. Juliana set down the tray and retreated to the kitchen, her refuge from the performative joy happening in her living room. Through the doorway, she could see Nicholas holding court near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. Handsome in his designer suit. Confident. Successful. Surrounded by admirers. He hadn't looked at her once all evening. Mrs. Torres, should I bring out more canapes? Maria, the caterer they'd hired, asked gently. Yes, please. Thank you, Maria. Juliana caught her reflection in the stainless steel refrigerator. 32 years old, but looking older tonight. Her dark hair pulled back in a simple bun. The modest navy dress she'd chosen carefully, elegant, but not attention-seeking. Invisible, really. Exactly what Nicholas seemed to prefer these days. She thought about the woman she'd been 7 years ago when they'd met. Juliana Mendoza, working 2 jobs while putting herself through community college. Waitressing at the cafe where Nicholas spent hours working on his laptop, surviving on coffee and dreams. He'd been broke then. Brilliant, but broke. Living in a studio apartment with 3 roommates, pouring every cent into developing an app he swore would change everything. And Juliana had believed in him. More than believed, she'd invested in him. Not just emotionally, but financially. She'd emptied her savings account, given him the $10,000 her mother had left her when she died. Worked extra shifts so he could quit his part-time job and focus on development. I'll pay you back triple when this takes off, he'd promised, kissing her hands. You're my partner. My everything. We're building this together. They'd gotten married at City Hall 6 months later. Simple ceremony. Just them and 2 witnesses. Nicholas had promised her a real wedding later, when they had money. That promise, like so many others, had evaporated the moment his app sold for $30 million. The money changed him. Or maybe it just revealed who he'd always been beneath the struggle. Suddenly, there were business dinners she wasn't invited to. Networking events where he said she wouldn't fit in. New friends who looked at her like she was an accessory he'd outgrown. Like she was the before picture in his success story, embarrassing evidence of his humble origins. You don't understand this world, he'd said 6 months ago when she'd asked why she wasn't included anymore. It's complicated. Business. You'd be bored. But Juliana understood perfectly. She understood that Nicholas wanted a wife who matched his new tax bracket. Someone polished and connected. Someone who'd gone to Stanford, not community college. Someone who enhanced his image instead of contradicting it. Someone who wasn't her. Juliana. Nicholas's voice cut through her thoughts. Sharp. Impatient. She stepped out of the kitchen. Yes. Where's the 2015 Bordeaux? I told you to put it out for my investors. It's on the bar. I opened 3 bottles. Not the bar. The wine table. Are you even paying attention? His eyes were hard. Cold. This was the voice he used when she disappointed him. Which was often lately. I'll move them now. Never mind. I'll get Vanessa to handle it. He turned away dismissively, already pulling out his phone. Vanessa, the name that had started appearing in his texts 3 months ago. His executive assistant. 24 years old. Stanford MBA. Everything Juliana wasn't. Nicholas had been careful at first. Late nights at the office. Business trips. The usual cliches. But lately he'd stopped even pretending. Vanessa's name came up constantly. Her opinions. Her ideas. Her efficiency. Last week, Juliana had found a receipt in his jacket pocket. Tiffany and Company. A diamond bracelet. $12,000. He hadn't given Juliana jewelry since their wedding. She'd confronted him that night, voice shaking. Who is she? Nicholas had looked at her with something worse than guilt. Boredom. Does it matter? You and I both know this isn't working anymore. What isn't working? Our marriage? The marriage I supported when you had nothing? That's the problem, isn't it? You're still living in the past. When I had nothing. When we had nothing. He gestured around their expensive penthouse. Look around, Juliana. We're not those people anymore. I'm not that person. I've evolved. You haven't. The words had landed like physical blows. I gave you everything. And I've paid you back 1,000 times over. This house. Your car. Your comfortable life. You haven't worked in 3 years. You've been living off my success. So don't act like I owe you something. He'd left her standing in their bedroom, tears streaming down her face, feeling small and worthless and used. That was 5 days ago. Tonight, the dread she'd been feeling intensified with every passing hour. Something was coming. She could feel it in the way Nicholas avoided her eyes, in the whispers that stopped when she walked by, in the looks of pity from guests who seemed to know something she didn't. At 9 p.m., the lights dimmed. Someone wheeled out an elaborate birthday cake, 3 tiers of chocolate and gold leaf, probably costing more than Juliana's mother had earned in a month. Everyone gathered around singing happy birthday, phones raised, capturing content for their social media feeds. Nicholas stood in the center of it all, grinning, basking in the attention. When the song ended, he raised his champagne glass. Thank you all for coming tonight. It means everything to have the people who matter most here to celebrate with me. Applause. Cheers. Juliana stood at the edge of the crowd, trying to make herself even smaller. I want to take a moment to talk about new beginnings, Nicholas continued. His eyes swept the room, landing briefly on Juliana before moving away. This past year has been transformative. My company has tripled in value. We've expanded to international markets. I've achieved things I once only dreamed of. More applause. Juliana's stomach churned. But success isn't just about business. It's about surrounding yourself with people who inspire you to be better, who challenge you, who match your ambition and vision. He paused dramatically, which is why tonight, I need to be honest. About my life. About my future. About what I really want. The room had gone quiet. Expectant. Hungry for whatever revelation was coming. Nicholas turned, and for the first time all evening, looked directly at Juliana. Juliana, can you come here, please? Her legs moved automatically, carrying her through the crowd. Faces turned toward her. Some pitying. Some curious. Some gleeful, sensing drama. She stopped a few feet from Nicholas, her heart hammering so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Juliana and I got married 7 years ago, Nicholas said, his voice carrying through the silent room. We were different people then. Young. Naive. We thought love was enough. But life has shown us that sometimes, people grow in different directions. Sometimes, what worked in one chapter doesn't work in the next. No, he wasn't doing this. Not here. Not now. Not in front of everyone. Nicholas, she whispered. I want a divorce. The words detonated like a bomb. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone's champagne glass shattered on the marble floor. Juliana couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The room tilted around her. I've already had the papers drawn up, Nicholas continued, his voice businesslike now, as if he were presenting a quarterly report. My lawyers will be in touch tomorrow. I'm giving you 24 hours to pack your personal belongings and vacate the premises. You can't. This is my home. Actually, it's my home. In my name. Purchased with my money. You'll find I've been very generous in the settlement. You'll receive $50,000. More than fair, considering you haven't contributed financially to this household in years. $50,000. A pittance compared to what they had. A fraction of what she'd given him when he had nothing. I supported you when you had nothing. Juliana's voice cracked, anger finally breaking through the shock. I gave you everything. My savings. My mother's money. I worked myself to exhaustion so you could build your dream. And I'm grateful for that early investment, Nicholas said coolly. Consider the 50,000-year return on investment. With interest. You can't do this. We're married. This is cruel. What's cruel is staying in a marriage that's dead. I'm doing us both a favor. He pulled out his phone, checked the time like he was already bored with the conversation. Now, I'd appreciate it if you'd leave. Tonight. I'll have your things sent wherever you're staying. Leave? You're throwing me out? During your party. Juliana looked around at the guests, at the faces watching this humiliation unfold like it was entertainment. You're throwing me out of my own home in front of all these people. It's not your home anymore. Nicholas's voice hardened. Security will escort you out if necessary. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be. Juliana felt tears burning her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of these people who were already pulling out their phones, probably texting their friends about the drama unfolding at Nicholas Torres's birthday party. Why? She whispered. Why like this? Nicholas's expression flickered with something that might have been guilt, or might have been nothing at all. Because I'm in love with someone else. Someone who actually belongs in my life. He gestured toward the hallway, and a woman emerged from the shadows where she'd apparently been waiting. Vanessa, 24 years old and stunning in a red dress that probably cost more than Juliana's entire wardrobe. Blonde, polished, smiling like she'd just won a prize. She walked to Nicholas's side, and he wrapped his arm around her waist possessively. Everyone, this is Vanessa Chun, my girlfriend. She's moving in tonight. I wanted you all to meet her properly, to understand that this isn't just about ending one chapter, it's about beginning another. A better one. The room exploded with whispers. Shock, judgment, excitement at the scandal. Juliana stood frozen, watching her husband, kiss another woman in front of her. In their home. At his birthday party. Get out, Juliana, Nicholas said, not even looking at her anymore. Please. You're embarrassing yourself. Something inside her shattered completely. Not her heart. That had broken weeks ago. Something deeper. Her sense of self. Her dignity. Her belief that despite everything, Nicholas had once loved her. He never had. She'd been an investment. A stepping stone. Useful when he needed her. Disposable now that he didn't. Juliana turned to leave. Her vision blurred with unshed tears. Her legs barely supporting her weight. She was halfway to the door when she heard it. A voice. Strong. Commanding. Cutting through the whispers like a knife. Excuse me. I'm looking for Juliana Mendoza. The room went silent. Juliana turned. An elderly man stood in the doorway. Early 70s, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that screamed old money. Silver hair. Sharp, intelligent eyes. Behind him stood two younger men in matching dark suits. Clearly security. I'm Juliana, she said, her voice barely a whisper. The old man's eyes locked on her face, and something extraordinary happened. His expression crumbled. Tears filled his eyes. His hand went to his chest like he'd been struck. Juliana, he breathed. My God, you look just like her. Just like my daughter. He crossed the room in quick strides, and before Juliana could react, he'd taken her hands in his, staring at her face like he was seeing a ghost. Who are you? She whispered. My name is Robert Ashford. The name meant nothing to her, but around the room, she heard gasps of recognition. And if you're who I think you are, if you're the daughter of Elena Mendoza, then you're my granddaughter. The granddaughter I've been searching for 32 years. The room exploded into chaos, and Nicholas's face went absolutely white. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. Juliana stared at the old man, Robert Ashford, trying to process his words through the fog of shock and humiliation. Granddaughter? Searching for 32 years? It made no sense. I think there's been a mistake, she said weakly. My mother's name was Elena Mendoza, but... Elena Victoria Mendoza, Robert interrupted, his voice thick with emotion. Born February 14, 1960. She had a birthmark on her left shoulder blade, shaped like a crescent moon. She loved classical music, especially Chopin. She could speak 3 languages by the time she was 15. Juliana's breath caught. The birthmark. The languages. The Chopin records her mother had played endlessly in their tiny apartment. How do you know that? Because she was my daughter. Robert's hands trembled as they held hers. My only child. She disappeared 33 years ago. Ran away after a terrible argument. I spent millions trying to find her, but she'd changed her name, hidden herself completely. I thought his voice broke. I thought she was dead. She is dead, Juliana whispered. She died 3 years ago. Cancer. The pain that crossed Robert's face was devastating. He aged a decade in that moment. I'm too late. I'm too late to tell her I was sorry. To tell her I was wrong. To tell her I loved her more than my pride. Around them, the party guests watched in stunned silence. Someone had turned off the music. The only sound was Robert's ragged breathing and the click of phone cameras capturing every moment. Nicholas stood frozen, Vanessa still clinging to his arm. His expression had shifted from smug triumph to dawning horror. I don't understand, Juliana said. Why did she run away? Why did she hide? Robert released her hands and pulled out his phone with shaking fingers. He scrolled through photos and turned the screen toward her. A young woman smiled out from the image. Dark hair, dark eyes, beautiful and radiant in an expensive gown, standing in front of a mansion. It was her mother, younger than Juliana had ever seen her, but unmistakably Elena. Your mother was Elena Ashford before she became Elena Mendoza, Robert said. Heiress to the Ashford fortune, one of the wealthiest families in America. But she fell in love with someone I didn't approve of, a man I thought was beneath her station. I was arrogant, controlling. I threatened to disown her if she didn't end the relationship. My father, Juliana breathed. She'd never known him. Her mother had only said he died before Juliana was born. Yes, Marcus Mendoza. A good man, I realize now. But I couldn't see it then. Elena chose him anyway. She chose love over money, over family, over everything. Robert's voice was heavy with regret. She disappeared in the middle of the night. I hired investigators, but she was clever. She knew how to hide from people with resources. She changed her name legally, moved constantly, lived simply. By the time she was pregnant with you, she'd erased every trace of Elena Ashford. Juliana felt dizzy. This couldn't be real. Her mother who'd worked as a housekeeper, who'd clipped coupons and bought day-old bread, who'd died in a charity hospital, had been an heiress? Why didn't she ever tell me? Pride, perhaps. Or maybe she wanted you to grow up without the burden of wealth, without the complications that destroyed our relationship. Robert studied her face intensely. She taught you to be strong, independent. I can see it in you. She gave you what I tried to steal from her, freedom. This is insane. Nicholas's voice cut through the moment. He'd recovered his composure, his lawyer brain already calculating. You can't just show up here claiming she's your granddaughter. You could be anyone. A con artist. Someone who read about my party online and saw an opportunity. I'm Robert Ashford, the old man said coldly, turning his full attention to Nicholas for the first time. Perhaps you've heard of Ashford Industries? Ashford Capital? The Ashford Foundation? The blood drained from Nicholas's face. Of course he'd heard of them. Everyone in the business world had. The Ashford family was American royalty, old money, vast holdings, billions in assets. Robert Ashford himself was a legend, a self-made magnate who'd turned his family's manufacturing business into a global empire. Nicholas's tech millions were pocket change compared to Ashford wealth. Mr. Ashford, Nicholas said, his voice suddenly obsequious. I apologize. I didn't recognize you. This is just unexpected. Juliana never mentioned. Because Juliana didn't know, Robert snapped. Her mother kept her heritage secret to protect her from people exactly like you. I don't understand what you mean. Don't you? Robert's eyes were ice. I arrived 20 minutes ago. I stood in that hallway listening to you publicly humiliate your wife. Throw her out of her own home. Discard her like garbage in front of a room full of people. And for what? For that. He gestured dismissively at Vanessa, who shrank back. You're exactly the kind of man I was 33 years ago. Arrogant. Entitled. Valuing wealth and status over character and loyalty. Sir, this is a private matter between me and my wife. Ex-wife, you mean? Isn't that what you just announced? That you wanted a divorce? That she had 24 hours to leave? Robert's voice could have cut glass. Well, congratulations. You've just made the worst business decision of your life. Nicholas's confidence flickered. I don't know what you think. I think you married my granddaughter when she had nothing. When you had nothing. I think she supported you, invested in you, believed in you. And the moment you found success, you decided she wasn't good enough for your new life. Robert stepped closer to Nicholas, and despite the age difference, he was the more intimidating presence. I've been in business for 50 years. I can spot a user from a mile away. You're a user, Mr. Torres. And you just used up your last bit of luck. Robert turned back to Juliana, his expression softening. My dear, I know this is overwhelming. I know you have no reason to trust me. But please, let me prove who I am. Let me prove who you are. A simple DNA test. That's all I ask. Juliana's mind reeled. An hour ago, she'd been the discarded wife with nothing. Now this stranger, this billionaire, was claiming she was his heir? Why now, she asked. Why did you find me now? I never stopped looking. But your mother was brilliant at hiding. She moved constantly, used cash for everything, stayed off grids. It wasn't until she got sick, until she had to use her real social security number for medical treatment, that my investigators finally picked up a trail. Robert's voice broke again. But by then, she was already dying. I was too late. The investigator found her death certificate 3 months ago. I thought I'd lost my last chance at family. Until they found the birth certificate. My Elena had a daughter. You. He pulled out a folder from his jacket. Papers that looked official, stamped, legal. Birth certificate. Juliana Elena Mendoza. Mother, Elena Victoria Mendoza. Born in Oakland, California, 32 years ago. He looked up at her. You're my only living heir. My only family. And I've spent the last 3 months searching for you. This is convenient timing, Nicholas interjected, his voice sharp with suspicion now. Showing up right when? Right when you decided to throw her away? Robert finished. Yes, very convenient. For her. My investigators traced Juliana to this address last week. I've been in San Francisco for 3 days, working up the courage to approach her. To tell her about a family she never knew existed. I came tonight because I couldn't wait another day. And I walked in to see you destroying the only person who ever truly loved you. The words hung in the air like an indictment. Nicholas's face flushed. You don't know anything about our marriage. I know enough. Robert placed a gentle hand on Juliana's shoulder. My car's outside. My lawyers. My doctors who can perform a DNA test immediately if you want proof. Or you can take your time. Process this. Come to me when you're ready. But either way, you're not staying here tonight. She's still my wife, Nicholas started. You just announced your divorce in front of 50 witnesses, Robert said coldly. Half of whom are recording this on their phones. I'd say your marriage is over, wouldn't you? Nicholas looked around the room, seeing for the first time the dozens of phones pointed at him. His carefully constructed image crumbling in real time. His eyes found Juliana's, and for a moment, she saw genuine panic there. Juliana, wait. Let's talk about this privately. There's been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? The laugh that escaped her was hollow. You told me to pack my things. You introduced your mistress. You gave me $50,000 in 24 hours to get out of my own home. What exactly did I misunderstand? I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. You meant every word. Juliana's voice was steady now, the shock giving way to clarity. You meant it last week when you told me I hadn't evolved. You meant it every time you excluded me from your life. Every time you made me feel small and worthless. You meant all of it. She turned to Robert. I'll take that DNA test. Not because I don't believe you, but because I need to be sure. I need to know this is real. Of course. Robert's smile was gentle. And while we wait for results, you'll stay at my hotel. The penthouse suite. We have much to talk about. 32 years of family history to catch up on. Juliana, don't be rash, Nicholas said, desperation creeping into his voice. Think about this. Think about what you're throwing away. What I'm throwing away. The question came out sharper than Juliana intended. What exactly am I throwing away, Nicholas? A husband who doesn't love me? A home that's not really mine? A life where I'm invisible? You don't understand the implications. Oh, I understand perfectly. You threw me away when you thought I was worthless. Now that I might be worth something, you want me back. She shook her head. But I'm not something to be picked up and discarded based on my value to you. I'm a person. I always was. You just never bothered to see it. Vanessa, who'd been silent this whole time, finally spoke up. Nicholas, maybe we should. Shut up, Nicholas snapped at her, his polished facade completely shattered now. Just shut up. Vanessa's face went red. Around them, guests whispered, recording, witnessing the complete unraveling of Nicholas Torres. Robert offered Juliana his arm. Shall we? Juliana looked around the penthouse one last time. The expensive furniture. The art on the walls. The view of the bay that had once taken her breath away. It had never been her home. It had been a prison dressed up as paradise. She took Robert's arm. Yes. Let's go. They walked toward the door together, Robert's security falling into step behind them. Juliana. Nicholas's voice was raw now, stripped of pretense. Don't do this. We can work this out. I made a mistake. She paused at the doorway, looking back at the man she'd loved. The man she'd sacrificed everything for. No, Nicholas. I made the mistake. I gave you everything when you had nothing, and I stayed even when you made it clear I was nothing. That mistake ends tonight. You'll regret this. The only thing I regret, Juliana said quietly, is not leaving sooner. She walked out of the penthouse, out of her marriage, out of the life that had slowly been killing her. And for the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe. In the elevator descending to the street, Robert squeezed her hand gently. You're stronger than Elena was at your age. She ran away. You walked away with your head high. I don't feel strong. I feel terrified. Fear and strength aren't opposites. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is admit we're scared and do it anyway. He smiled. Your mother would be proud of you. Tears finally spilled down Juliana's cheeks. I wish she'd told me. About you. About who she was. She had her reasons. And maybe they were good ones. Maybe you needed to become who you are without the burden of Ashford expectations. Robert's eyes were kind. But she's gone now, and you're here, and I'd like the chance to be family. If you'll have me. I don't know how to be an Ashford. Then it's a good thing I'm looking for a granddaughter, not an heiress. He patted her hand. We'll figure it out together. One day at a time. The elevator doors opened to the garage. A Rolls-Royce waited, flanked by 2 security vehicles. Juliana laughed, slightly hysterical. Is this real? Please tell me this is real and not some stress-induced hallucination. It's real. And tomorrow, when the DNA results confirm what I already know in my heart, it'll still be real. Robert helped her into the car. Your old life is over, Juliana. Your real life is just beginning. As the car pulled away from the building, Juliana looked back one last time at the penthouse where Nicholas's party continued without her. She didn't feel victorious. She didn't feel vindicated. She felt free. And that was enough. The Ashford penthouse suite at the Four Seasons occupied the entire top floor. Juliana stood in the marble foyer, her borrowed coat from Robert draped over her shoulders, staring at opulence that made Nicholas's penthouse look like a college dorm room. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a 360-degree view of San Francisco. Chandeliers that probably cost more than cars. Furniture that belonged in museums. This wasn't just wealth. This was generational, old money, aristocratic wealth. I've taken the liberty of having some clothes sent up, Robert said, gesturing to the master bedroom where garment bags already hung in the closet. I hope I guessed your size correctly. If not, we'll have a stylist come tomorrow. Juliana touched one of the bags. Chanel. You had these ready? I've been preparing for 3 days. Hoping you'd say yes. Robert's smile was gentle. I'm an old man, Juliana. I've learned not to waste time when it comes to family. One of the security men approached. Sir, the medical team is here. Whenever Ms. Mendoza is ready. Medical team? For the DNA test, Robert explained. I've brought in the best geneticists in the country. We'll have preliminary results by morning, full confirmation within 48 hours. I want there to be no doubt. For your sake and mine. 20 minutes later, Juliana sat in the suite's living room while a doctor drew blood samples. The whole process was surreal, professional, efficient, and conducted with a level of service she'd never experienced in her life. All done, the doctor said, labeling the vials. We'll contact Mr. Ashford as soon as we have results. After they left, Robert poured 2 glasses of brandy and handed one to Juliana. You don't have to drink it, but you look like you could use it. She took a sip, the liquid burning warmly down her throat. I still can't believe this is happening. Tell me about her, Robert said softly, settling into the chair across from her. Tell me about Elena. About the life she built after she left. So Juliana did. She told him about the tiny apartments they'd moved through, Oakland, Sacramento, Fresno. Always moving, always working. Elena had cleaned houses, worked in restaurants, did whatever it took to keep them afloat. She never complained, Juliana said. Even when she was exhausted. Even when we had nothing. She'd play Chopin on this old CD player and tell me stories about traveling the world, speaking different languages. I thought they were fairy tales. I didn't realize they were memories. What did she tell you about me? Nothing. She said her family was gone. That it was just us. Juliana looked at him. Why? Why did she hate you so much that she'd rather scrub toilets than come home? Robert's face aged with pain. Because I told her I'd rather have no daughter than one who married beneath her station. I said terrible things. Things a father should never say. I was grooming her to take over the business, you see. I had her whole life planned. The right schools. The right husband. Some merger marriage with another wealthy family. When she fell in love with Marcus, a construction worker with no pedigree, I saw it as a betrayal. But she loved him. Yes, truly, deeply loved him. And I couldn't see past my own arrogance to understand that love was worth more than any business arrangement. Robert's hands shook slightly. The night she left, I told her that if she walked out that door, she was dead to me. That I'd disown her completely. That she'd never see a cent of Ashford money. And she walked out anyway. She did. Because she had something I'd forgotten. Courage. Real courage, not the boardroom kind. The courage to choose love over everything else. He wiped his eyes. I was 50 years old and thought I knew everything. She was 22 and wiser than I'd ever be. They sat in silence for a moment, both grieving the woman who'd connected them. What happened to my father? Juliana asked. Construction accident. 3 months before you were born. Elena was pregnant and suddenly alone in a city where she knew no one, with no family to turn to. If I'd known, his voice broke. If I'd known, I would have moved heaven and earth to find her, to bring her home, to tell her I was sorry. She never told you she was pregnant? She wanted nothing from me, not even in her darkest moment. That's how much I hurt her. Robert looked at Juliana with fierce intensity. But I found you. Finally. And I won't waste this second chance. I've spent 33 years building an empire with no one to leave it to. No family to share it with. That ends now. I don't want your money, Juliana said quietly. I just wanted my mother to live long enough to see me happy. To see that her sacrifices meant something. They did mean something. They made you who you are. Strong. Independent. Loyal. Robert leaned forward. But Juliana, this isn't about money. It's about family. It's about righting a wrong that's haunted me for 3 decades. Please, let me try to give you what I failed to give your mother. A place where you belong. Juliana's phone buzzed. She'd been ignoring it for the past hour, but the notifications kept coming. She finally looked. 47 missed calls from Nicholas. Over 100 text messages. She scrolled through them, watching his tone shift from angry to desperate to calculating. You're embarrassing yourself. This old man is using you. We need to talk about the divorce settlement. I made a mistake. Vanessa means nothing. Do you have any idea who Robert Ashford is? We need to strategize. Call me immediately. This is important. Fine, ignore me. But remember who stood by you when you had nothing. That last one made her laugh bitterly. He's rewriting history already. Robert glanced at the phone. Your husband is realizing what he's lost. Ex-husband. He made that very clear. Actually, you're still legally married. He announced his intention to divorce. But until papers are filed and finalized, you're still Mrs. Torres. Robert's eyes glinted. Which gives you certain rights to marital assets that he's probably just now remembering. I don't want his money. Maybe not. But you're entitled to it. And more importantly, making him face consequences might be the only thing that teaches him actions have prices. Robert set down his brandy. I've already had my lawyers review California divorce law. As your grandfather, I want to ensure you're protected. I can't afford lawyers to fight someone like Nicholas. You don't need to afford them. I have an entire legal firm on retainer. They'll handle everything. Robert's smile was sharp. And trust me, they're very good at what they do. The next morning, Juliana woke in Egyptian cotton sheets softer than clouds, in a bedroom larger than any apartment she'd lived in with her mother. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then it all came rushing back. Nicholas. The party. Robert. Everything. Her phone showed 127 new notifications. She ignored them and walked to the living room where Robert was already awake, reading the Wall Street Journal with his morning coffee. Good morning. I hope you slept well. Better than I have in months. It was true. Despite everything, she'd slept deeply, dreamlessly. The weight she'd been carrying for years had lifted. The preliminary DNA results came through an hour ago. Robert set down his paper, his expression carefully neutral. Would you like to know? Juliana's heart hammered. This was it. The moment that would determine if last night had been real or some elaborate mistake. Yes. Robert pulled out his phone and turned it toward her. An email from the genetics lab, full of technical language she didn't understand. But the conclusion was clear. Probability of familial relationship, 99.97%. Subject Juliana Mendoza is confirmed to be the biological granddaughter of subject Robert Ashford. It's real, she whispered. It's real. Robert's eyes shone with tears. You're my granddaughter. My family. And I'd very much like to start acting like it, if you'll let me. Before Juliana could respond, there was a knock at the suite door. One of the security men answered it, then turned to Robert with a grim expression. Sir, there's a Nicholas Torres in the lobby. He's demanding to see Ms. Mendoza. He's causing a scene. Robert's jaw tightened. How did he know she was here? The party last night. Everyone saw her leave with you. It wouldn't take much to figure out where you're staying. Should we call the police? The security man asked. No, Juliana said, standing. Let him come up. I'll talk to him. Juliana, I need to do this. I need to face him without fear. Without feeling small. She looked at Robert. But I'd like you to stay. As my grandfather. As my family. Robert's smile was fierce with pride. I wouldn't be anywhere else. Nicholas looked terrible. His designer suit was rumpled, his hair messy, his eyes bloodshot. He burst into the suite like a storm, then stopped short when he saw Robert sitting calmly on the sofa. Juliana, we need to talk. Alone. No, she said simply. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of my grandfather. The word grandfather made Nicholas flinch. The DNA results had probably hit the news already. The tech billionaire who'd publicly divorced his wife, only to discover she was heiress to one of America's great fortunes. This is insane, Nicholas said, running his hands through his hair. Last night was a mistake. I was stressed. The pressure of the party, the investors expecting. You introduced your mistress, Juliana interrupted. You told me to pack my things. You gave me 24 hours to leave. Which part of that was stress? I was trying to make a point. You made your point perfectly clear. You don't love me. You don't want me. You think I'm beneath you. She crossed her arms. So what are you doing here, Nicholas? I came to apologize. To tell you I overreacted. That we can work through this. Work through you publicly humiliating me. Work through you stealing everything I gave you and offering me $50,000. Work through you kissing another woman in my face. Juliana's voice was steel. Or are you here because you found out who my grandfather is and realized you made a very expensive mistake? Nicholas's face flushed. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? She stepped closer to him. When we met, I was working 2 jobs. You were broke, living on ramen and dreams. I believed in you. I gave you everything I had. $10,000 from my mother's life insurance. Every extra shift I could work. My time. My energy. My love. And you took it all and convinced yourself you did it alone. I paid you back. You paid me back $50,000 and a humiliation I'll never forget. You told a room full of people I hadn't contributed to our household in years, that I'd been living off your success. You erased every sacrifice I made. Every night I worked while you coded. Every meal I skipped so you could eat. Every dream I postponed so yours could come true. Juliana, I'm not finished. Her voice rose. You made me feel worthless. You excluded me from your life piece by piece until I was a ghost in my own home. And last night, you decided even that wasn't enough. You had to destroy me publicly. You had to make sure everyone knew I wasn't good enough for the great Nicholas Torres. I was wrong. You were cruel. Deliberately, calculatedly cruel. And the only reason you're here now is because you realized I might be worth something after all. Nicholas's composure cracked. What do you want from me? You want me to grovel? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. I made a terrible mistake. But we can fix this. We're good together. We built something. You built something. Using my foundation. My support. My money. And the moment you didn't need me anymore, you threw me away. Because I'm an idiot. Because I got caught up in the success and the lifestyle, and I forgot what mattered. Nicholas dropped to his knees, actually kneeling in front of her. Please. Please, Juliana. Don't throw away 7 years. Don't throw away our marriage because I had a moment of stupidity. A moment. She stared down at him. Vanessa has been in your life for months. The affair, the lies, the emotional abandonment. That wasn't a moment. That was a choice. Many choices. I'll end it. I'll fire her. I'll do whatever it takes. You'll fire her because I'm suddenly valuable, not because you love me. That's the problem, Nicholas. You never loved me. You loved what I could give you. And when you thought I couldn't give you anything else, You discarded me. Robert spoke for the first time. Mr. Torres, I think you should leave. Nicholas turned on him. Stay out of this, old man. This is between me and my wife. Ex-wife, Juliana corrected. You announced our divorce. Everyone heard you. There are dozens of videos. You can't take it back now. We haven't filed papers. We're still legally married. We can fix this. My lawyers will be filing papers this afternoon, Robert said calmly. On Juliana's behalf. Given your public announcement of divorce and the very well-documented introduction of your mistress, I believe we have grounds for at-fault divorce. Which means Juliana is entitled to significantly more than the $50,000 you so generously offered. Nicholas went pale. You can't, the prenup. The prenup your lawyer drew up 7 years ago? The one that favored you completely because Juliana trusted you and didn't have her own representation. Robert's smile was cold. I've had my team review it. It's not as airtight as you think, particularly given the circumstances of your dissolution announcement. I'm worth $800 million. And my granddaughter supported you when you were worth nothing. California is a community property state, Mr. Torres. Everything acquired during the marriage is jointly owned. Your company, your investments, your real estate, everything. She'll get her fair share. I'm not unreasonable. Her fair share is half, Robert said flatly. $400 million. Plus spousal support. Plus compensation for the emotional distress of your very public betrayal. Nicholas stood, his panic turning to rage. You're poisoning her against me. She would never. Juliana wouldn't do this. She's not vindictive. You're right, Juliana said quietly. I'm not vindictive. But I'm also not a doormat anymore. You took everything from me, Nicholas. My money, my time, my identity, my dignity. You can't have my future too. I gave you everything. The house, the car, the lifestyle. You gave me a prison and called it paradise. You gave me loneliness and called it marriage. You gave me nothing that actually mattered. This is about the money, Nicholas spat. Now that you know you're rich, you don't need me anymore. You're just as opportunistic as you think I am. Get out, Robert said, standing. His security men moved forward. Juliana, please. Goodbye, Nicholas. She turned away from him, facing the windows, the city spread out below. My lawyer will be in touch about the divorce proceedings. You'll regret this. When you realize how hard it is out there alone. I've been alone for years, she said without turning around. The only difference now is I'm admitting it. Security escorted Nicholas out, his protests echoing down the hallway until the elevator doors cut them off. Juliana stood at the window, her shoulders shaking. Robert approached carefully. Are you all right? I don't know. She wiped her eyes. Part of me feels strong. Part of me feels like I just burned down my entire life. You burned down a life that was already ashes. Now you get to build something real. What if I'm not strong enough? What if without him? You were strong enough to survive him. Everything else will be easier. Juliana turned to face her grandfather. This man who'd been a stranger 24 hours ago. This man who was now her only family. What happens now? Now. Robert smiled. Now we have breakfast. Then we meet with lawyers. Then I'd like to show you the Ashford estate, if you're interested. It's been empty too long. It needs family again. And after that, we take it one day at a time. We get to know each other. We honor your mother's memory by building the family she should have had. We live. He offered his arm. Unless you have other plans? Juliana thought about her empty apartment, the one she'd have to go back to, since she'd never actually moved her things into Nicholas's penthouse. The teaching job she'd given up. The life she'd abandoned piece by piece. And she realized she had nothing to go back to. Only forward. No other plans, she said, taking his arm. Good. Because I have quite a few. Starting with making sure Nicholas Torres understands exactly what he threw away. 3 weeks later, Juliana stood in the boardroom of Ashford Industries, looking out at the San Francisco skyline from the 45th floor. She wore a Armani suit, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, and felt like someone playing dress-up in someone else's life. Except it was her life now. Robert had spent the past weeks introducing her to the Ashford world, the foundation, the businesses, the investments, the responsibilities that came with being an Ashford heir. You don't have to take on everything at once, he'd said. But I want you to understand what's yours, what your mother walked away from, what she wanted you to choose for yourself, not have forced upon you. Today was the final divorce mediation with Nicholas. Robert's lawyers had been ruthless, documenting every asset, every contribution Juliana had made, every lie Nicholas had told. The preliminary settlement offer had made the news. $380 million, plus the Georgetown townhouse, plus a formal public apology. Nicholas had fought it. Of course he had. He'd hired 3 different law firms, each more aggressive than the last. But the evidence was overwhelming. The videos from his party, the affair with Vanessa, the prenup that his own lawyer admitted was potentially problematic given the circumstances. "He's here," Robert said, entering the boardroom. "Are you ready?" Juliana turned from the window. "I don't know. Is anyone ever ready to face the person who broke them? You're not broken anymore. Remember that." The conference room door opened. Nicholas entered with his lead attorney, Marcus Chun, expensive suit, cold eyes, the kind of shark lawyer billionaires hired when they were desperate. Nicholas looked worse than he had 3 weeks ago. Thinner, older. The cocky confidence that had defined him was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like humility. Their eyes met across the table. Juliana felt nothing. Not anger. Not hurt. Just emptiness where love used to be. "Shall we begin?" Robert's attorney, Patricia Morrison, was a legend, 60 years old, Harvard Law, undefeated in high-asset divorces. "Mr. Torres, I believe you've reviewed our final settlement offer." "It's extortion," Marcus Chin said flatly. "My client is willing to settle for $75 million, the townhouse, and a mutual non-disclosure agreement. That's more than generous given." "Given what?" Patricia's voice could cut glass. "Given that your client publicly announced his divorce, introduced his mistress, and ordered my client to vacate their shared home in front of 50 witnesses, all captured on video and currently trending on social media? My client made a mistake. Your client committed adultery, emotional abuse, and financial manipulation. Mrs. Torres contributed $10,000 to his startup when he had nothing. She worked multiple jobs to support him. She gave up her career at his request. California law is very clear about community property and spousal contributions. We're prepared to go to court," Marcus said. "So are we. And when we do, we'll be subpoenaing Vanessa Chun, no relation, I assume, along with your client's financial records, which shows several interesting expenditures. Company funds used for personal romantic expenses, hotels, jewelry, trips disguised as business meetings." Patricia smiled. "Would you like me to continue, or shall we discuss realistic settlement terms?" Nicholas spoke for the first time, his voice rough. "Can I talk to Juliana? Alone? 5 minutes. Please." "Absolutely not," Robert said immediately. "Please." Nicholas looked at Juliana. "Just 5 minutes. No lawyers. No grandfather. Just us." Juliana studied him. The man she'd loved. The man she'd sacrificed everything for. The man who destroyed her. "5 minutes," she said. "Juliana," Robert started. "It's okay. I need to do this." She stood. "Conference room next door." 5 minutes. The smaller conference room felt suffocating with just the two of them. Nicholas stood by the window, his back to her, his shoulders tense. "Thank you for agreeing to talk. You have 4 minutes left." He turned to face her. "I know you hate me. I know I deserve it. I know I destroyed everything good in my life. But I need you to understand something." "Understand what? That you're sorry? That it was a mistake?" "I've heard this speech, Nicholas." "No. You need to understand that I was drowning." His voice cracked. "The company, the pressure, the expectations, everyone wanted something from me. Everyone had advice. Everyone was telling me who to be, what to do, how to act. And you were the only person who knew me before, who remembered when I was nobody. And I couldn't," he broke off, wiping his eyes. "I couldn't stand having you look at me and see who I used to be, because I was terrified that's all I really was. A fraud in an expensive suit." Juliana felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, but understanding. "So you pushed me away. I destroyed you because you reminded me of my own inadequacy. You were good and loyal and real, and I was becoming everything I used to despise. Shallow, status-obsessed, cruel." He moved closer. "The affair with Vanessa wasn't about her. It was about proving I could have someone who fit my new image. Someone who made me look successful. That doesn't make it hurt less." "I know. God, Juliana, I know. And that party, throwing you out in front of everyone. That was the worst thing I've ever done. I wanted to cut you out completely because having you in my life meant facing what I'd become. It was easier to make you the problem than to admit I was destroying myself. Why are you telling me this now? Because I've spent 3 weeks in hell. Watching you become who you were always meant to be. Watching you find family and dignity and strength. And realizing that everything I thought made me successful, the money, the company, the status, means nothing without you. Juliana's throat tightened. Nicholas. I lost Vanessa the day after the party. She wanted the rich boyfriend, not the controversial one. Half my investors pulled out when the videos went viral. The board is talking about removing me. My parents won't return my calls. And you know what the worst part is? What? I deserve all of it. Every consequence. Every loss. Because I threw away the only person who ever loved me for who I was, not what I had. Tears streamed down his face now, no attempt to hide them. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not even asking you to take me back. I'm just asking you to know that I finally understand what I lost. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Juliana watched him cry. This man who'd been too proud to show weakness, who'd valued image over authenticity, who destroyed their marriage in pursuit of status. And she felt something unexpected. Pity. Nicholas, look at me. He raised his eyes, red and swollen. You hurt me worse than I've ever been hurt. You took everything I gave you and made me feel worthless for giving it. You humiliated me publicly and tried to erase me from your success story. I know, but I also know what it's like to lose yourself. To become someone you don't recognize in pursuit of something you think you need. She took a breath. My mother did that. She gave up everything. Family, wealth, identity, for love. And she spent 30 years paying for that choice. She died alone in a charity hospital, estranged from her father, working herself to death. Juliana, let me finish. When Robert told me who she was, my first reaction was anger. Why didn't she come home? Why didn't she reach out? Why did she choose pride over practical help when we were struggling? Juliana's voice softened. But then I understood. She made her choice and she lived with it. She never regretted choosing love, even when love cost her everything. Even when the man she loved died and left her alone with a baby and nothing else. Nicholas was silent, listening. You made terrible choices, Nicholas. You hurt me in ways I'll carry forever. But you're also drowning in consequences, and I don't think piling on more punishment helps either of us heal. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't want $400 million from you. I don't want to destroy your company or your life. I just want to be free of the pain. But the settlement. We'll agree to a fair settlement. Not the nuclear option my lawyers want. Not the insulting amount you originally offered. Something that acknowledges what I contributed without destroying what you built. She moved to the window, looking out at the city. And then we're going to try something radical. What? Honesty. Real honesty. About who we are, what we want, whether there's anything left worth saving. Nicholas stared at her. You'd consider reconciliation? I'd consider counseling. Intensive, brutal, no bullshit counseling where we figure out if there's a marriage under the wreckage or just two people who need to let go. She turned to face him. But here are my conditions. You're in individual therapy. You rebuild your relationship with your parents and learn what real family means. You make genuine amends, not just to me, but to everyone you've hurt climbing your ladder. And you figure out who Nicholas Torres actually is when nobody's watching. And you? I'm doing the same. I'm learning who Juliana Ashford Torres is. Not your wife. Not my mother's daughter. Not my grandfather's heir. Just me. And maybe, if we both do the work, we'll discover whether there's an us worth fighting for. Why? His voice was barely a whisper. Why would you give me this chance after everything I did? Because my grandfather spent 33 years regretting that he didn't give my mother one. Because she spent 33 years never forgiving him, and they both died with that wound still bleeding. Because pride and punishment might feel satisfying, but they don't heal anything. She crossed to him, close enough to see the hope and fear warring in his eyes. And because buried under all the hurt and anger, there's still a part of me that remembers why I loved you. The struggling coder who dreamed big. The man who stayed up all night talking about changing the world. The person you were before success poisoned you. She paused. I want to know if that person still exists. And if he does, whether he's someone I can love again. What if I can't be that person anymore? Then we'll know. And we'll both be able to move forward without wondering what if. She stepped back. But this is your one chance, Nicholas. You humiliate me again. You lie again. You take me for granted again, and I'm done. Forever. No second chances. No reconciliation. Just lawyers and a divorce that will teach you exactly how expensive cruelty can be. I understand. He nodded, something like determination replacing the despair in his eyes. I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy. Amends. Work. Whatever you need. I don't need you to do it for me. I need you to do it for yourself. Because if you can't love yourself honestly, you'll never love anyone else honestly either. She moved to the door, then paused. And Nicholas? That woman you thought was beneath your new station? The one you tried to erase? She was the best thing that ever happened to you. Don't forget that. She left him standing in the conference room, tears streaming down his face, finally beginning to understand what he'd almost lost forever. 6 months later, the Ashford estate no longer felt like a museum. Sunlight poured through tall windows onto long oak tables that now carried the evidence of living. Coffee cups left half-finished, a stack of mail waiting to be sorted, a vase of wildflowers Juliana had picked herself from the garden. The house breathed again. Juliana stood barefoot on the terrace, a shawl draped around her shoulders, watching the early fog lift from the hills. She'd learned the rhythms of this place slowly, carefully, as if afraid that moving too fast would shatter the fragile peace she'd built. She was no longer running. Behind her, the soft click of the terrace door announced Robert's arrival. He carried 2 mugs of tea, handing one to her with a quiet smile. "You're up early," he said. "I like this hour," Juliana replied. "It feels honest. Like the world hasn't decided yet what it wants from you." Robert chuckled. "Your mother used to say something similar. She loved dawn." Juliana smiled at the mention of Elena, no longer with the sharp ache of loss, but with something gentler now. Grief had softened into remembrance, anger into understanding. "How are you feeling today?" Robert asked. She considered the question carefully. "Grounded," she said at last. "Nervous. Hopeful. All at once." He nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. "Nicholas arrives at 10. Yes." She took a breath. "I know." Robert studied her face, searching for doubt. He found none, only resolve. "Remember, Juliana, whatever happens today, you're not doing this because you owe him anything." "I know," she said softly. "I'm doing it because I owe myself honesty." Nicholas arrived without fanfare. No motorcade, no entourage, just a black sedan pulling up to the estate gates, and a man stepping out who looked markedly different from the one who had humiliated his wife months earlier. He was thinner, yes, but there was something else, too. Less armor, less performance. Juliana watched from the entry hall as he walked up the gravel path. His shoulders were squared, but not stiff. He looked like someone who'd spent months learning how to stand without hiding behind anything. When the door opened, their eyes met. "Hi," he said. "Hi," she replied. For a moment, neither moved. Then Nicholas spoke again, voice steady. "Thank you for agreeing to see me here. This place is part of my life now," Juliana said. "If we're going to talk about the future, it felt right to do it somewhere that reflects who I am, not just who we used to be." "I understand." Robert appeared beside her. "I'll be in the study," he said gently. "No interruptions." Nicholas met his gaze. "Thank you for everything." Robert inclined his head once. "Prove it with your actions." And then they were alone. They sat across from each other in the sunlit sitting room. No lawyers. No contracts. Just 2 people who'd loved each other and broken something precious. "I've been in therapy twice a week," Nicholas began. "Individual. And I started family counseling with my parents." Juliana didn't respond, but she listened. "I spent years convincing myself I was self-made," he continued. "That needing anyone meant weakness. Turns out, I was just terrified of being seen." He swallowed. "Of being found lacking." She folded her hands in her lap. "And Vanessa?" "Gone," he said simply. "Not fired. I didn't want power to be the ending. I told her the truth, that what we had was built on ego and escape. She deserved clarity. So did I." Juliana nodded. "That mattered." "I stepped down as CEO," Nicholas added quietly. Her eyes lifted in surprise. "Voluntarily." "Yes. The board wanted blood after the scandal. I offered accountability instead. I'm still involved, but I'm no longer in charge." He met her gaze. "For the first time in years, I'm not chasing validation." That couldn't have been easy. It was terrifying, he admitted, but also relieving. Silence stretched between them, not awkward, just full. "I want to say something," Juliana said at last. "And I need you to listen without defending yourself." "I will. You didn't just betray me, she said. You erased me. You rewrote our history to make yourself feel justified. That hurt more than the affair, more than the party, because it made me doubt my own reality. Nicholas closed his eyes. I know. I need to know, really know, that you understand that damage doesn't disappear just because you're sorry. I do, he said hoarsely. And I don't expect it to. If you tell me you need years, I'll give you years. If you tell me you can never forgive me, I'll live with that too. She studied him closely. What if I forgive you, but I don't forget? That's not a flaw, he said. That's wisdom. A tear slipped down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. The agreement they reached that afternoon was not dramatic. It wasn't sweeping declarations or grand gestures. It was careful, deliberate, earned. They would pause the divorce proceedings, not cancel them outright. A 6-month reconciliation period, overseen by a mediator and a therapist they both trusted. They would live separately, for now. They would rebuild trust without expectation. And most importantly, they would speak the truth, even when it was uncomfortable. When Nicholas left the estate that day, Juliana didn't feel triumphant. She felt steady. 3 months later, Juliana stood on a small stage at the Ashford Foundation's annual education gala. Her hands trembled slightly as she addressed the audience. Donors, educators, students whose lives would be changed by the scholarships the foundation provided. For most of my life, she said, I believed worth was something you earned by being useful to others, by sacrificing quietly, by staying small. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I was wrong. Worth is not granted by success, money, or approval. It exists because we exist. And when we forget that, when we measure people by what they can give us, we lose something essential. In the front row, Robert watched with pride shining in his eyes. At the back of the room, Nicholas stood quietly, not drawing attention to himself, listening like a student instead of a star. Juliana met his gaze briefly. He nodded, not as a claim, but as acknowledgement. The night they truly reconciled was not planned. It happened in a small kitchen apartment Juliana had rented in the city, neutral ground. No memories attached. They were cooking together, awkwardly at first, laughing when the sauce burned, arguing lightly about garlic. It felt normal. Nicholas, she said suddenly, turning off the stove. I need to know something. Anything. If we try again, really try, it can't be built on who we were before. That marriage died. He nodded. I don't want it back. What do you want? A new one, he said softly. With you. If you'll have me. One where we choose each other every day. Where I never make you feel invisible again. She searched his face for the man who'd once humiliated her publicly. She didn't see him. She saw someone still flawed, still learning, but present. I won't disappear into your life again, she said. I won't let you, he replied. Even if you try. She laughed through her tears. Deal. 1 year after the birthday party that had shattered everything, Juliana returned to that same penthouse, not as a wife being discarded, but as a woman reclaiming a chapter. She and Nicholas stood together, boxes stacked around them. They weren't moving back in. They were closing the door. Ready? He asked. Yes. They left the keys on the counter and walked out hand in hand, not looking back. That evening, at the Ashford estate, Robert raised a glass at dinner. To second chances, he said. The ones we earn, and the ones we're brave enough to accept. Juliana squeezed Nicholas's hand. She hadn't lost everything that night. She'd lost illusions. And in their place, she'd found truth, family, forgiveness, and a love rebuilt not on need, but on choice. Sometimes, losing everything is how you finally find what matters. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.